Postcards from Nebraska on RFD-TV, a program about rural life. This week, join Roger Welsch for a visit to a factory floor to meet a welder who was awarded Nebraska's Outstanding Worker of the Year. And at 77, she is still on the assembly line. There are no blackboards, bells, or even desks at this school. It's a new kind of classroom at a city zoo where the apes and elephants help kids learn the 3 R's. Plus, he's a landscape artist whose inspiration is scenes from everyday life. A painter with an eye for finding beauty out on the farm. And finally, the Nebraska cornfields are once again alive with the lost and nearly forgotten sounds of the Native Americans known as the Ponca. It's all this week on Postcards from Nebraska.
I've been trying to learn basic welding techniques for the past 3 years. It's a real art, you know. One thing I have learned is that it's a skill that requires great patience and practice. So I was pleased to learn recently that a welder has been named the Outstanding Worker of the Year in Nebraska. That welder has worked here at Kawasaki Motors in Lincoln, Nebraska for a long time now, well past the old retirement age. Where did you learn how to weld?
Here.
Bessie Whitlatch is 77 years old.
I've been working ever since I was 5 years old.
How long have you worked here in this plant?
October 5th, it'll be 22 years.
22 years.
Yeah. I tell
You started about the time most people start thinking about retiring.
I don't want to retire.
It's easy to understand why she was named Nebraska's Outstanding Worker. She never calls in sick. The only time she's been in the hospital was to have her children. She has 3 children, 13 grandchildren, 3 great-grandchildren.
I've never been out of work. Ever. I've been lucky, I guess, but I've never been out of work. When I want to work, I had it, and I've never been fired from the place either.
She never takes a vacation day. She doesn't even take a break unless someone tells her to.
If you want to go get a cup of coffee, go ahead and go get your cup of coffee and go back to the break table.
Does that mean we have to go back to work? She works, she says, not for the money, but because she likes to work. Where does that energy come from?
It's always been. It didn't come from anything. I want to see and do and be with people.
So I never seen that one plaque you got from the government.
Her outlook on life has always been Spartan. Even when she takes a lunch break with fellow workers, her apple a day seems curiously out of place in the company of heartier plates. Bessie's responsibility is to weld the handlebars for Kawasaki's all-terrain vehicles, a device that is inconsistent with her own lifestyle. These are some of the handlebars that you were working on. Can you look at those and tell if they're ones you did?
They are, because I'm the only one doing it.
So you did all of these?
I don't have to guess who did it. I did.
This past March, Bessie was honored by the governor of Nebraska for her dedication, and then in Washington, D.C. She had never been to the nation's capital, this time visiting even the White House. What did you think when all of this fuss sprang up about you being Nebraska's #1 worker?
I didn't think I'd ever get that. I still pinch myself and wonder how I got that.
What do the people, the other welders here at the plant think about you going off to Washington?
I don't know. I haven't talked to them.
I'll bet they were a little bit jealous.
Well, maybe.
Do you have any retirement plans at all?
No. No. I don't want to retire. I have never thought of retiring any time. I don't want to retire as long as I got good health.
For Bessie Whitlatch, Work is not something she does so she can lead another, more comfortable life. Not a chore and burden apart from the life where she has choices. Work is her choice. For her, work is simply a part of life itself, just as surely as her children, her home, her family and friends.
Everybody seems to think you're supposed to retire. That's all they can think about.
Retirement, watching Bessie at work, I have the feeling somebody's going to have a tough time telling her it's time to leave the job. And I'd sure hate to be the poor soul who has to fill her shoes or wrestle that welding gun out of her hands. You told me you're going to live to be 100.
Yeah, I sure am. That's my goal.
Are you going to be welding till you're 100?
I wouldn't say that. If something better came along, I might move.
When I was a kid, I haunted this building. It was then the Lincoln City Zoo. It smelled bad, it was noisy, it was even a little sad, all those wild animals behind bars, but I did learn a lot here. In fact, I think I even skipped school a couple of times to come here. I was way ahead of my time. If I'd played my cards right, I could have gone to school here.
You are going into the zoo and you're observing the animals, and while you are on site, which means you're looking at those things right there, okay? You need to write down as much as you know about the question. I'm truly picking your brain here.
At the new outdoor children's zoo, an innovation is taking place.
My anatomy and physiology class uses the zoo to do some comparative anatomy, compare humans with non-human animals, some similarities and some differences. So, impress me, write a lot, okay? Go to it.
Some 80 high school students spend most of their school day here, using the animals to help them learn math, English, science, sociology, and of course, zoology.
Kyle, Jeff, do you have a dog at home?
Jane Obink, one of the teachers in the pilot project, explains how that's possible.
Get them to howl. And then the English classes have been reading some material on different animals and from different cultural viewpoints, how different cultures value animals. There's an advanced algebra class that's been looking at these animal behaviors and trying to develop patterns mathematically that might explain some of the patterns.
I like goats, the white-handed gibbons.
Yeah, those are pretty neat.
They're fun to watch. The baboons are like, they fight all the time, and so they're so loud. Everyone at this school had to observe an animal, and like it was just kind of one of the basic things that everybody did.
It's a lot different.
A lot different.
Yeah, because you're responsible for yourself, and
We knew that for many of our students, the traditional way of doing high school was not their most effective way of learning. We looked at several zoo schools around the country, one in particular in Minnesota, went up to visit it and said, wow, what possibilities, this is fabulous.
Students who are here want to be here and are selected from a list of applicants, not necessarily for their grades, but for their creativity.
Were they curious? Did they have some motivation? Did they have follow-through? Could they work well with other people? We were looking at any kid who had an interest in trying this new way of learning and was motivated to stick in there and try it.
David Cox has bears in his curriculum.
I'm taking anatomy tests and looking at their eyes and trying to examine their respiratory system.
What do your fellow students think about you coming out here and spending your high school days in the zoo?
A lot of them are jealous because I do a lot more interesting things than they do. They're trying to get us to actually learn it instead of just going through the book and passing your test.
I'm not holding their hand like I might back at a traditional school. I feel like I'm really teaching. I don't feel like I'm just there to crowd control.
Courtney Kuzik is studying the baboons, nicknamed Raymond, Simon, and Figgy.
I was trying to compare them to humans and their oxygen intake, and I was mainly comparing with how humans act and how baboons act.
What do you tell other students when you see them in the conventional high school programs about what you're doing out here? Are you enthusiastic about it?
Oh, definitely. They all wonder, so are you feeding the animals? They don't seem to quite understand that we're not training to be zookeepers. We're actually doing the normal curriculum. I'm perfectly happy here. Can't imagine I'll go back to a normal 8-period-a-day class.
And you're making some new friends, too.
Definitely. The baboons.
We'd like them to just be able to do what they really want to do in life. Not necessarily scientists or zoologists, but writers, actors, speech writers, whatever.
Schools are changing, not always for the better, for students, teachers, and even the animals who have a whole new set of friends who respect them not simply as animals, but as sources of information and learning.
Do you want to then run over to the gelato baboon, take a look at them for a little bit, then we'll go over to the singing dogs. Okay, hopefully they'll be singing. If they're not, do you know how to make them sing? You kind of hoot back at them. So you're the opera coach at that point. Can you sing for us? Can you sing, Otter?
It was a tradition when I attended schools here in Lincoln that the last day of school we exploded from the confinement of the classroom shouting, "School's out, school's out, teacher let the monkeys out." In Nebraska, that chant is now changing to "School's in, school's in, let monkey lessons now begin."
Well, here's some noise.
I didn't grow up on the farm or even near my place in Dannebrog. I came here by accident and over the years got to know my neighbors one by one. In the last 9 years that I've been sending you these postcards on Sunday morning, you've met a lot of them.
That's ridiculous.
Eric at the tavern. Harriet in the cafe. Ellen Levon at the service station. Don, the dowser and well driller. Dan, the jack of all trades.
We're gonna go way.
Those are the kind of folks you expect to find in a small town anywhere. A little less expected was this guy, Hal Halone.
It's like a pretty good spot here because I think the light's going to break through.
He's an artist. I shouldn't have been surprised, I suppose. Art and artists are everywhere. That's where artists are supposed to be. How do you decide where it is you're going to work? Which way the wind's blowing?
You have to take what they'll give you. That's why I enjoy this. It's not a pat process. It's every day is different.
Hell paints things we see every day. An elm tree outside our back door. Russian olive trees that have become almost a weed on the Great Plains. Typical sand hills landscapes. I suppose that's what artists do.
Where some people might see trees, I see shapes. I look for patterns in relation to each other. I think that's why I love landscape so much, especially Nebraska landscape, because it's not as dramatic or overwhelming as other landscapes in the country.
Shouldn't an artist be where the landscape is more spectacular, more vast, more powerful, more striking than trees and bushes and old storage sheds?
I have the best success walking along and just sort of waiting for something to happen. And there's a moment when it happens. The same thing is true of painting skies, especially dawns or evening paintings. In fact, there's a moment when a dawn becomes, there's one instant when it's something and then it's gone.
The most meaningful to me of Hal's work is this one on my own living room wall, a wedding gift to Linda and me from Hal. I like this painting because it says something to me about art. It's not a scene in Paris or Tahiti. The subject is obviously not a Gothic cathedral or a castle on the Rhine. The subject isn't exotic or spectacular. In fact, it's remarkably ordinary. This is Hal's painting of a storage shed just a couple hundred yards from here, down in the woods by the river. Yeah, the place has changed a little bit since you were here 12 years ago, painted this.
It really has. A tremendous amount of trees and things have grown up here since that time.
Yeah, and the shed's deteriorated.
Yeah.
Once the roof goes on those things, they just don't last very long.
I remember much more.
Hal sat right here somewhere and painted that picture. And that says to me that art is done in places like this, where I walk every day. It's not somewhere far away or beautiful in its own right. It's right here. And its beauty is explained to us with Hal's brush and easel.
I came walking out here, it was in the morning, and there's a smash of light coming through all the greens, and there it was. And just that one accent against everything else was just magic. So I stopped right there and stopped looking for anything else and painted.
When you see that painting now, does that moment come back to you?
Yes, absolutely.
This shed, these trees, these bushes are on my own property. So that small piece of canvas reminds me that there's art all around me, in my own life, on my own place. But this place is full of beauty, Hal and his painting tell me, full of art. And that's one thing only art can do. Most Americans have never even heard of the Ponca tribe. But for the Ponca themselves, this old abandoned building, standing on quiet northeast Nebraska farmland, is not only a memory from the past, but a hope for the future.
Look at the old agency. You see the big windows.
Deborah Wright is the chairwoman of the Northern Ponca tribe.
Just envision a council meeting, community meeting, something going on there that's happy and, you know, kind of brings it back to life.
The story of the Ponca tribe is like that of most Plains tribes. The Ponca were quiet farmers, perfectly prepared to live at peace with the land. But as the frontier moved past them, they surrendered their land, here pictured at a ceremony on the White House lawn. They lost tribal customs and traditions. Half the tribe was removed to Oklahoma. The tribe seemed destined for certain extinction. The Ponca who stayed in Nebraska left these cornfields and went to the cities. They forgot they were Ponca. They became success stories for government programs, from the slaying of the buffalo to the final death blow, termination, the official closing down of the Northern Ponca tribe in the 1960s. But soon, it seems, these old Ponca lands, which once occupied the entire northeast corner of Nebraska, now nothing more than typical Nebraska cornfields, may again echo with Ponca song. The Northern Ponca tribe is being reborn, even if on only a couple hundred acres.
It's a challenge.
Young Ponca, like Deborah Wright, Northern Ponca tribal chairwoman, have risen from the historical ashes to reclaim their heritage.
We're looking at the lost culture, language, and people's without a name all this time. I need your signatures on, if you would just okay them as a third signature.
Refusing to surrender, the new Northern Ponca have become businessmen and women, politicians and lobbyists. They're enlisting the help of the government that once dismantled their tribe to help put it back together again. The long-abandoned tribal headquarters building may again house traditional gatherings with dance, storytelling, and song. The picture that you have of this, did you recognize any of the people in it?
No, I did not. No.
So it's probably taken some time to go then.
I don't even want to guess at it. It is an actual powwow.
Wow. How many people do you suppose were at the gathering?
I don't know, judging just from on that picture, it probably wasn't really that big. It was in this room.
Yeah.
So.
Wouldn't you like to have been there?
I envisioned myself in the corner over there. No.
Yeah. Did you ever hear stories about this place when you were a little girl and wonder about it?
Like everybody has a culture they come from. You know, they have some name, some meaning in their background. The Poncas did not here in the northern area for some years. So it's good to bring that back again and teach our children.
It's not so much a celebration of the past as it is a path to the future. The new Ponca are building a bridge between generations. So there's still some spirits of the Ponca villages within sight of the land that now again is Ponca.
Yeah, good spirits.
Good spirits. Are you sure? How can you tell?
You can feel it.
A century ago, Ponca Chief Standing Bear left Oklahoma to return to these tribal lands to bury his child. That was a violation of federal policy, and he was arrested, which resulted eventually in a court decision declaring Indians to be human beings in the meaning of the law. Standing Bear's passionate speech at his trial changed history. I think he'd be proud of these new young Ponca, refusing to die, refusing to go away. This is what Standing Bear said at his trial. "My hand is not the same color as yours, but if you pierce it, I shall feel pain. The blood will be the same color. We are men, the same God made us. All I ask is what is mine, my land, my freedom, my dignity as a man.